These soldiers think their training will keep them alive. They break down doors and come through windows, weapons drawn. But it's too late. They forgot the first rule of survival. The real hunter always watches where he steps.
Every operation is different from the last in some way, shape, or form, but there are always a few similarities or rules that apply. One of these is that the attacker has a lot to be wary of, especially traps. Another is that an operator who is not aware of his surroundings is prone to fall for these traps easily. When it comes to traps and lurking, no defending operator can quite compare to the Russian defender, Kapkan. Real name Maxim Busada was almost guaranteed a life of military service in some shape or form. Born in May 14th in Kovrov, Russia, both of his parents worked in military surplus factories. As the eldest of three, Maxim was often left in charge of caring for and looking out for his two younger siblings. This ingrained in him a firm sense of responsibility that served as a major factor in his later military career. Neither he nor his parents wanted Maxim to waste away in the grueling factories, so obviously something had to be done. It was recommended and encouraged by both his parents and teachers that Maxim enlist in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. While working within the ministry, Maxim was given extensive weapons training, protection detail work, and practice in high-speed pursuit. On top of this, Maxim shows adept skills in information gathering and hostage extraction. But most importantly, Maxim Busada demonstrated self-sufficiency that baffled his superiors, which he demonstrated as being one of the only officers to survive the Beslan school siege. A large part of his self-sufficiency can be attributed to his realistic perspective on the world. Kap-can has seen the nature of the world and knows it to be harsh. But rather than shrink back from this reality, Kap-can uses it to remind himself that it is not impossible to endure the harsh realities of life. To Maxim, decisive action and level-headedness are essential to overcoming the harshnesses of reality. He is not one to panic, and during an undercover operation in Naryan Mar on the Barents Sea, he successfully shut down an organized criminal organization almost single-handed through his clever sleights of hand, deception tactics, and fierce determination. It was his mission that got him noticed by the Spetsnaz, who recruited him quickly. Spetsnaz training was even more grueling and demanding than his training from the ministry. He underwent fierce physical conditioning, hand-to-hand combat training, and hunting skills that taught him how to outthink and outplan his quarry. He adopted many hobbies and pastimes that revolved around weapons, hunting, and trapping. Kap-can was also proficient in CQC, or close quarters combat, in which he was especially fond of knife fighting. While training with new Spetsnaz recruit Lera Maria Melanovka in close combat, Melankova made a misstep and Kap-can hastily slashed her across the face, leaving a visible scar from brow to cheek. In response, she punched and broke Kap-can's nose. The two would spend the night in the med tent together, and though they didn't speak, the two had found a new respect for each other. It was this scar that Kap-can gave her that earned her the nickname Finka, which means knife. Above just this, Maxim demonstrated a fascination for psychology, of learning the mind. This taught him how to anticipate the actions of others and defined him as a predator. Maxim understands that it's important to understand an animal's behavior and patterns to be effective at hunting them, but you must also respect the prey. Maxim learned how to apply this principle to people too, understanding them and how they are like animals, but also how they are not. He was a survivalist to the core, and after spending years in the Arctic Circle perfecting his craft, the newly named Kap-can, so named for his skill at trapping insurgents and enemy foes, was born. In 2015, he received an invitation to join Rainbow, which he accepted, along with the 3 other Spetsnaz soldiers with him at the time. At first, the 4 Spetsnaz recruits, Tachanka, Glaz, Fuse, and Kap-can, formed a tight-knit fold, feeling somewhat ostracized from the other operating groups. But over time and work, particularly on the part of Harry, they began to integrate well into the fold. Though Kap-can can come across as jaded or cynical, this shouldn't be a reflection on his actual outlook. Despite first impressions, Kap-can cares deeply about other people and often works to mentor his fellow operators, due in part to the compassion and mentor-like attitude he demonstrated towards his own younger brothers. When 6th Director Harry asked him how he had changed over the years, Kap-can simply replied that the only difference between now and then is that he now knows when to take back some of the things he says. Kap-can often thinks of himself as a wolf, loyal, level-headed, and devoted. A wolf is a predator, but it relies on others. Wolves nurture and support each other for the betterment of the community. However, perhaps that also may indicate a loneliness. Kapkan spent much of his military training relying on himself to survive and to fight against grueling odds, in stark contrast to his upbringing work to support and care for his little brothers. Surrounded by peers who are now his equals, does Kapkan feel somewhat lonely? Does he feel that he is somewhat isolated and longs for a pack he feels connected to? That question was answered later during his career with Rainbow. During the Rainbow Division, when Nighthaven broke ties with Rainbow and some operators defected to their side, it was wondered if Kapkan would join them. But for the loyal wolf, that was never even a question. Nighthaven had deep pockets, but a wolf's loyalty to his pack can't be bought. Not only this, but as a master of the mind, Kapkan knew how Kali thought. In her, he saw an arrogance and disregard for her subordinate so long as her victory was assured. He witnessed this during the second tournament event when Kali stole the victory at the cost of her teammates. Such insubordination and casual disregard for her team was, in his way of thinking, a clear problem. He currently is assigned to Squad Red Hammer under the command of Thermite. Nighthaven, and any other organization that opposes Red Hammer or Rainbow, as a whole should be wary. A predator lurks within their ranks, and a threat to his pack is a death sentence to the one foolish enough to pose it. In terms of gadgets, Kapkan is armed with 5 entry denial device tripwire mines, or EDDs as he calls them, packed with C4 for a devastating explosion. These are homemade special mines that he can anchor into doorways and window frames. The mines release a thin laser across the entryway, and when tripped, the mines will detonate, causing damage to the operator who crosses them. Kapkan can choose to place all EDDs on the same doorway at varying heights and sides if he wants, or he can place one on various doorways for a wider range of coverage. The devices are electronic, so they can be detected by IQ, disabled by Thatcher's EMP grenades, or destroyed by Twitch's shock drones. These mines are generally best for dealing with rushing attackers who are not expecting them or aren't careful about where they walk. The mines do 60 points of damage to the one who walks through them, and the damage output has an effective range of 3 meters, meaning they can potentially harm other operators who are too close to the mine. This includes allies. Apparently, operator Tina Lynn Frost Zhang joined Kapkan in the evaluation of this gadget, working to make it more compact and flexible. Through their shared understanding of hunting, survivalism, and trap work, the two grew a working relationship and a mutual respect for each other.
Oh, I got the win, thank the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Now, Kapkan is nothing without his weapons, and his loadout is impressive. Kapkan is equipped with 2 optional primaries and 2 secondary options. For primaries, Kapkan carries the 9x19 VSN submachine gun. It's considered one of the easiest submachine guns in the game to use. It features a subpar rate of fire but compensates with high damage output, able to put down lightly armored operators with a 3-round burst at close range. Though it does have a damage drop-off that should be factored in, because of its low recoil, it's easily handled and a great gun for beginners. His second primary is the SASG, or Sausage 12 shotgun, and it's one of the best shotguns available in terms of damage and rate of fire. Even when suppressed, this shotgun boasts impressive damage output. It has a fast ADS time, a good rate of fire, and a high magazine capacity, making it ideal for new players who need help with accuracy, as it's forgiving if you miss your first few shots. It does have a moderate recoil per shot, but this can be mitigated with the addition of an underbarrel attachment. It also has a weaker damage drop-off level, but this is a common weakness of shotguns. But with all that said, I'd be lying if I said I enjoyed this gun. I suppose you can chalk it up to my own rotten luck, but I've only gotten a kill with this thing once, and it was purely accidental.
Last stop standing.
For his secondaries, he carries the PMM 9mm handgun. It's a favored pistol of the Spetsnaz. Considered a hand cannon, though easy to use, the PMM boasts a high damage per shot, has a fast reload speed, and has manageable recoil. Its low magazine capacity does mean that the operator must be careful with its shots, though. However, when compared to his other secondary, the GSH-18 handgun, it's almost the opposite. It has a low recoil and high magazine capacity, making it capable of dumping more rounds per clip, but at the cost of lower damage per shot and being almost useless at longer ranges. A good gun for those with poor accuracy who need a larger clip, but otherwise the PMM is the more preferable option in my opinion. The best strategy to go with for Kapkan are two. I have two good strategies for you to use, and it depends highly on location. One strategy is what I call the hunker down. Have Kapkan plant his EDDs at every possible entryway into the objective room and reinforce the walls on all sides. Unless the attackers have a lot of hard breachers, they'll be forced to use the trap entrances. This will force them to either hesitate, knowing that they're entering a kill zone, or they will rush in, which means they'll be prone to the traps. However, the downside of this strategy is that it doesn't account for hard breaching operators and can potentially turn your objective room into a kill zone for you instead. Also, this strategy is best when on hostage rescue or defending a biohazard region, not bomb, because bomb has two bombs in two different rooms, and that can be harder to cover. The second strategy is my preferred one, which I call backpedaling. At the start of the prep phase, move out of the objective room and plant EDDs on commonly used entryways and doors that attackers like to go through, and make sure they're far enough away from the objective that the attackers are less likely to look for them. The closer the attackers get to the objective, the more cautious they will become. But upon initial entry, most will be more relaxed. They expect Kapkan to place his bombs closer to the objective. Use this to your advantage. The benefit of this is that it means you will be more likely to get damaged under your opponents. But the downside is that it requires the attackers to take the routes you desire, and they may not always oblige you in this. Plus, it usually means you won't get a lot of kills from your traps, more likely just injuries. This is why it's important to think like an attacker and determine what they might do. Also, I will bring him up here. Russian Badger recommended hunkering down and waiting till the end, and granted that is a fine strategy, but I recommend a more active approach. Instead, I recommend lurking outside of the objective and flanking behind the attackers. Just because you're not Caveira doesn't mean you'll be any less capable of outmaneuvering your prey. Even if you mess up and are killed during the round, you're still passively supporting your team, as the Kap-can traps still function after death. For some reason, I've noticed attackers seem to get a false sense of security after killing Kap-can, as if they subconsciously think that the threat he poses is somehow past when he's eliminated. That's a cute way of looking at it, but entirely false. It's also important to keep in mind that you do have counters that I mentioned before. It's good to partner up with operators who can help you capitalize on your EDDs. Bandit, Mute, and Cade can help reinforce walls safely, so the first strategy I propose is more applicable. Also, having Tachanka and Goyo to use fire tactics to force your opponents into a rushing charge away from the fire can make them less likely to notice your traps. But perhaps your best friend will be Jaeger and Wamai, who can neutralize EMP grenades that disable your gadget. The only other operators to worry about then is Twitch's dart drone or Brava and her hacking drone. My advice as far as they're concerned is to shoot the damn drones on sight or have Mute on standby. Pretty easy solution. In conclusion, I love Kap-can. Not only is he an easy operator for beginners, but he's a great choice for players with poor accuracy who can still rack up kills or assists. Even a piss-poor player like me who dies frequently in the game can still find success with Kap-can, as his traps are still useful after I've assumed room temperature. His persona fits his playstyle, and you gotta appreciate an operator who you don't have to worry too much about engaging directly with opponents when you can let your traps do all the necessary work. He has a good set of firearms just in case those traps aren't enough, which are easy for beginners to get the hang of, and can still be an asset to the team. His elite skin and animation is pretty awesome as well. It bears a resemblance to his default skin, but is different enough to at least be recognized. Plus, he demonstrates that awesome knife skill we know him for, which Finka trembles a little at each time he does it. And the way I see it, if you're new to Rainbow Six and you want to figure out the best way to approach a defensive playstyle, I definitely recommend Kapkan as your first choice. Not because his guns are the best, but because he requires you to think from both perspectives. You have to understand how the attackers work and what they will do and how they will be effective. You must learn how to be the apex predator. Think like your prey so that you can better trap them. And if that's the way you want to play, Kap-can is just the right bipedal alligator to teach you.
These soldiers think their training will keep them alive. They break down doors and come through windows, weapons drawn. But it's too late. They forgot the first rule of survival. A real hunter always watches where he steps.